Sixth day in the series, celebrations in PNC, today's topic. So we have 5 days already over in the series. Let me introduce the panelists here for the Q&A. We have SOUPARNA from Durgapur, MEENU and MOHINI on the same screen from BIKANER, MANISH from Nepal, and BINAL from Thane, Mumbai. Welcome to this 6th day of the series. So for all the audience who have joined from Facebook and YouTube, the flow will be that I'll be walking through the revision little bit quickly, and then we'll take a short Q&A, and then we'll go through the celebrations in PNC topic. So let's start the revision quickly. So we have gone through what and why of PNC, basis of PNC, primary principle of PNC, ultimate principle of PNC, and then culprits in PNC also is over. Today, celebration in PNC. Disclaimer, those who are watching recording, they can just pause the video and just go through the disclaimer. We are trying to bring an education that the real cure is always from within. It cannot come from outside. The protocols that we follow in these all discussions, we don't bring any references. References will put a baggage on the understanding and wisdom. So we try to bring the understanding and wisdom, not any quotation by any individual or scripture quotation or even data support. We support the whole analysis, the causal analysis, not the part analysis or the effect importance. Definitely ego doesn't play a role in this. So we started with this, what is PNC understanding? PNC is basically observation based understanding that the life in nature grows programmatically and maintain its homeostasis without any specific external dependency. And it grows naturally and neutrally. Specific external dependency can be anything, something substance or something non-substance, matter and non-matter both. So that way, specific dependency actually is a created reality that we create. We understand that deeply in the world of the organism. We also discussed about the difference between the medicinal understanding and the natural health understanding. We differ in understanding of health, big way. The understanding of disease is entirely different in medicinal understanding and the natural fraternity understanding. We understand in natural health fraternity that the disease is a needful initiator of the body. It should be supported. But medicinal understanding is different. We have to fight with disease kind of understanding is there, which we don't relate to. Now, within the natural health fraternity, the PNC approach is the dialectical approach, which is understanding first. So we don't impose or propose any recommendation of prescription or remedial things in PNC. PNC is first understanding, then further implementation of that. In basis of PNC, about the dialectics, we understood the lifespan framework and where we start our journey with the reason and intellect. And then we bring the flexibility. We have PRIYATOSH also joined from KOLKATA. He will be there in the stream. Yeah, welcome, sir. We have just started. The revision is going on. Right. So we in the first phase of the lifespan, the reason we execute, and then the flexibility comes, and then the wisdom emerges out. Rationality identifies the beyond reason zone, but we keep it non-concluded. In the basis of PNC, we also understood the vitality conservation and the meaning of vitality. The lifespan framework also proposes that the 3 basic capabilities of all organisms: repairing, reproduction, and the regulation. So based on the regulating capability, we identify the organisms as isolated system, and we found the total quotient of the vitality within an organism is fixed from the conception to the perishment of the body. And the vitality of every moment can be distributed into these three parts, where an organic engagement is very much evident to start with, and then we find an additional engagement of vitality where we can work a lot in reduction of this additional engagement of the vitality, so that this green portion can be increased, because the organic engagement cannot be reversed. What can be reversed is this gray area that you see in this bar. Then the voice of the organism, when we understand the primary principle of PNC, the process of origin analysis. So when we identify any body sensation and bring us perception towards that, we need to verify the origin from where it is coming. And also we understand that the origin could be tendency driven. The tendency driven origin is the reality, the real reality. That is what is the crux of the materialism. And created reality is not only the matter plays a role, there the mind also plays a role. So created reality could be mango jam, and the reality is a mango, where there is no mind playing, unless the modification of the agriculture and all those stuff is employed on. So we are talking about the natural mango. So it is also known as a confused materialism. It is not the materialism. Assumed reality is
Sir? Sir?
Hello.
Hello, sir?
all these pairs of the spells of the reality, right? I think internet connection.
There is some network issue.
It's not audible. Sir, it's not audible.
Little bit troubling. Is it okay? My
Sir? I can't hear you, sir. Is Kalyan there? Maybe he'll rejoin. not sure. Maybe I'll just call
Are
him. I'll just call him once and see. Oh,
Network,
okay.
it seems. Still the network is not stable. It's
I think the network issue is okay with others. Only with Kalyan is some problem. Is it?
Yes, sir. My network is fine. I can see you all clearly and hear also clearly.
Right.
Yes, we can hear each other very clearly, except for Kalyan.
yeah. It,
Okay.
I think it gets settled.
Sure,
Is it
sir.
audible? Audible?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
audible.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Great.
Very much.
So yeah, we have Dr. Datta also. So we were revising the concepts that had been covered already. Let's continue. With the revision, we'll come back to the questions once again.
Sure, sir.
So we understood this concept in Voice of the Organism, that we don't encourage sacrifice. We always go for satiation of natural pleasures. Definitely, the stimulation and suppression are the loads on vitality. That's why we need to be very conscious about the stimulation and suppression. And the way we can bring upon this natural satiation and reduction in the stimulation and suppression is by slowing down in the gratification process. And we also talked about the symmetry. And actually, next topic we talked deeply about the symmetry, the law of unity, the ultimate principle of PNC. It is a process of observation of the connectedness and its pattern in everything to confirm the natural conservation. It's the ultimate sense of growth. Now, what is this growth? Growth of the self can happen physically and cognitively. Physical growth is limited but very much important and primary, and cognitive growth is unlimited. And in cognitive growth, we also tried to understand the mirroring process and the symmetry, the natural beauty. Now, culprits in PNC, yesterday's topic, we talked about the over-engagement of vitality. That is the culprit in PNC. The over-engagement of vitality can happen through these three things primarily: innervation, stimulations, and suppression. Now, stimulation is the reason for innervation. Innervation is the depletion or over-engagement of the vitality. Now, when we stimulate, we indulge in stimulation, that time the vitality gets engaged more and more, and that happens because of the indulgence in the created reality a lot. Now, in understanding the innervation, we went forward to understand that how innervation reduces the normal elimination. Normal elimination is the elimination of the toxin from the body through the kidneys, lungs, and skin. So when we are innervated, the reduction happens in the normal elimination, and that leads us to retention of toxin. And when the toxin is retained in the body, that time we actually lead ourselves to a state called toxemia. And toxemia leads us to initiation of special elimination. Special elimination comes in form of fever. We'll understand deeply today about that. And the problem happens when we suppress that initiative of the body and we chronify the health problems. And we also understood the 7 stages of disease according to Pure Nature Cure. where innervation gets transformed to toxemia because of suppression. Toxemia gets transformed to, let me make it full screen, gets transformed to irritation. Irritation gets transformed to inflammation, further to ulceration, further to hardening, and then fungation or cancer. And everywhere the suppression is the reason. The suppression is the problem here to bring the next stage of disease from the previous stage. With that, I end the revision part and I'll go for a few of the questions from the revision. Open to the panel. Yes.
Who is the youngest panelist
Yeah,
today?
she is Mohini, Meenu's daughter.
No, oh,
Yes,
Meenu's daughter.
yes, yes.
I see.
But sister?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, who is the first questioner today?
I would want to attempt a question. This is
Yes.
the very first slide where we talked about the definition of PNC. There is
Yes.
one word called neutrally and naturally. So
Yeah.
when the organism is programmatically bound to grow, why do you mention this word called neutrally? And I can understand naturally because if it is aligned with nature, then it is bound to grow. But why do you mention neutrally?
So, we find that naturally is synonymous to neutrally. If it is neutral, it is natural. If it is natural, then it has to be neutral.
Okay.
Because homeostasis is the characteristic of nature. It's a programmatic characteristic in nature. So if it is not neutral, then it is not natural. It is conditioned, right? That's what we meant in that definition. Does that answer?
Kalyan,
It does.
Sir,
Kalyan, is myopia a stage of toxemia? And if yes, then is wearing spectacles a suppression?
yes, it is a crutch. It's a crutch. It's a crutch, and definitely, if not suppression, then definitely it's blocking the reversal for sure. Blocking the reversal for sure. There are a lot of researchers in optics world now. They are not in the popular mainstream, but they help people to reverse. Actually, in natural health fraternity, claiming that I cure you is a kind of very limited claim. Actually, this is an educative process where these natural researcher of the optics science, they educate people how they can get rid of the dependency of the specs. Yeah. Actually, in homeostasis, previous homeostasis, one person came from Coimbatore, if you remember. Did you attend his? Yeah. Satish Kumar. Dr.
Yes,
Satish. Yes. So he had recorded. He is actually doing a continuous research. He has recorded to help people reversing from -15 diopter to -2, -3 kind of within 7 days of practice. That kind of miraculous reversal has happened. Yeah.
I
So,
have a
sir, how
question.
can that reversal be explained by PNC, sir?
Come again.
How can that
Come again, please.
reversal be explained in PNC, sir?
Well, today's topic will touch upon the reversal for sure, and tomorrow also will continue the reversal process. How mindfully we can help the body to reverse. You know. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Sopali.
So, what do you mean by fragility in the PNC, in the law of unity, and confused cognitive growth?
Okay. Yes. A good question, actually. So, physical growth and the cognitive growth, these two types of growth we are programmed for, right? So, physical growth is the physical growth from small to big. Cognitive growth is also the same, small to big, 1 to infinity. So, now in this process, if we compromise with the physical growth process dialectically, if we don't support the physical growth and physiological growth in first two phases, and if we over focus on the intellectuality and the mental growth only, we may succeed, we may feel succeeding in that cognitive growth process, but there is a vacuum at the first place at the physical level, and that vacuum will not spare the individual to give its blow, right? And that is what is the fragility. If somebody is focusing on the mind aspect primarily, neglecting the physical aspect, the matter aspect, then I give this example, suppose, so it's a perception modification in the cognitive growth, where we perceive the reality as it is, kind of. It's a real spirituality, if we can say that way. So suppose if somebody is having a pain in the body, and pain is a physical aspect. It is a physical aspect, and it's a very real aspect. But suffering is a mental aspect. Try and understand this. And suppose that individual is suffering from a pain scale of 7 out of 10. Now, often we actually perceive that pain of 7 to 10 or 14, right? So that's, we exaggerate the pain through the suffering. But if somebody is highly spiritual, then he or she will be perceiving the pain of 7 as 7 only, reality as it is. But if somebody is fragility is there, and focusing on the mind management a lot and trying to underestimate the pain and scaling the pain of 7 as 3, that is what is the fragility. That is what is the fragility, where we are not seeing the reality as it is. We are underestimating the reality. We glorify this aspect many times, but at the individual level, that's a fragility. The person will have the physical blow a lot. Hope that clarifies. You can place further question on that. Yes, sir. We are waiting for your question.
To start with a small question that in response to yesterday, I listened to the recording. In response to Supriya's question regarding that what are the density of body, etc. You told that it is the density factor you give more importance over other factors. She mentioned about pH, right?
Yes.
pH factor. So my question is, why density is one of the parameter that is related to the property, molecular property, right?
Yes.
But gross property in an assembly of molecules. But individually, the molecular property is something different. And number 2, pH also is some property which is connected to the density as such. But it is something more. It includes the ionic character as well, individual ionic character, right? So in that sense, pH should come first, then density, or many other things may be there. But why density so important?
Right. So I understand from where you are coming. So here, first thing first, in PNC we weigh properties more than the parts. So we don't go for the part analysis, but the property analysis. So as you said, that the pH and the density both are properties, not the parts. Agreed. Now, many nature cure practitioner and natural health practitioner, they consider this alkalinity and acidity a lot, and they proposes alkaline food, acidic food, and all those categories. In our practice in PSYsolution, we don't bring that for the very reason that identifying pH without any support of lab or kind of litmus with the what it is called, like litmus paper to identify litmus paper. So it's not always possible to gauge the pH level of the food while eating. So we focus on the voice of the organism more than the pH aspect. So pH aspect is not denied in nature cure, just for answering your question. Just to answer your question, just that in our workshops and all, we don't talk about the pH level, because the simple reason that identifying the pH without any lab support is not always possible.
Yeah, so may I put the next question, because time may be restricted in this. May I go ahead for the second question? Or
please, one question you can take, after that we'll go.
Okay. So in connection to infection screening and toxin care discussion, suppose infection is there from outside, then toxin care and screening, two options are there. So you can get tick, tick, cross, or cross, cross. 4 options, right? Tick means right, he is there. Cross means not there. So you mentioned that tick cross. That means screening is there, but no toxin care. So it's not prescribed by you. On the other hand, both are cross. It is dangerous. And you prescribe for cross tick. That means screening is there, not there, and toxin care is there, right? Screening is not there, toxin care is there. That is your prescription. And then you mentioned that both tick is foolish, just foolishness, right? Even in innervation, some special elimination process, it starts to work naturally. Fine, up to this point. And in your discussion, you assume that I am for the time being leaving aside conspiracy. Now, my question is, in case of a global scale infection or in conspiracy case kind of thing, when the infection level is suddenly very high out of the natural range, beyond the range, suppose one is attacking with some chemical weapons in the form of smoke, right? Then is it something very special elimination process works in the body, or we have to take some external help for reducing that effect?
Yes, thank you. Very needed question. And for those who are not able to connect to this, there's some problem in the screen mirroring. Just a second, let me. I think this is not being mirrored. I was trying to show that image that I used yesterday, but somehow it's not mirroring. Let me try once again. Yeah. So yesterday I proposed this understanding of shielding the infection. Suppose this is the shield, this is the wall. Here the toxin is there, and here the infection is there. The right side is the infection. There is some problem in the mirroring. Right? It's not clear. Is it clear at your end?
Actually, it's not showing what is written.
Okay, doesn't matter. Let me explain verbally.
Yeah.
So here, what I was proposing. Suppose this is a firewall, and right side is the infection, and left side is the toxin. Toxin is the reason for the infection. The pathogens are attracted for this toxin. Now we are putting a shield here. We are putting a shield, and we are blocking this particular pathogen to enter to avoid the toxin, to avoid the infection. Now, the case one that I shared yesterday, that you shielded, just because you shielded, the toxin care, the reversal of the toxin is not taken care by the individual. So the individual is not risk-free. If the toxin is not addressed, then the individual will get some other unidentified infection, which is not yet identified the modern science. And that may evolve from within. That may not come from outside, because the infection is not necessarily comes from outside. It may evolve from within because of the toxicity of the body, right? So the case one is that whatever we do, we need to take care of the toxin. If we are not taking care of the toxin, then the toxicity will go up, and some major problem is waiting for us. Now, case two, if we are taking care of if we are very serious about the toxin, we are taking the responsibility of reduction of the toxicity by taking care of the vitality. Then there is nothing to get scared about. Nothing to get scared about the external infection. Then the shield is useless. It is not needed at all. That was the two cases. Now you proposed one thing. Then if it is biological warfare, that's what you meant? It's a lab-based preparation, and it's a planned attack on the humanity, nation-wise or whatever you call it, but it is an attack. If it is so, then what will you do if you are fired with a bullet? Firing bullet has a reference, right? That is your body. If your body is not there, firing bullet will not be invented. Similarly, for the biological warfare, the reference is the toxicity. If you take care of the toxicity, then the biological warfare will be useless for you. It will not effective. Suppose just consider that bullet is fired and you have a control to remove your body. The bullet will be useless. Similarly, the biological warfare, the bullet of the biological warfare is the toxin. And the common toxin, the common global toxin is so huge that this is actually working. Globally, it is working. The infection is happening. We are removing the concept of conspiracy for time being. There is a conspiracy working, perhaps, and it is. But if we are just not discussing about the conspiracy, but the real infection, then the real infection is happening because of the toxicity in people. So we have to work on that. We have to be conscious about the toxicity, not the infection. So yeah, does that answer, sir?
Yeah, go ahead. With I think we have taken so much of time.
Right. So let me actually take to the. So once I'll try to cast this my screen, iPad screen, but if it is not working, then I'll. Yeah. Is it visible now? The screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great. So let's just touch upon the topic celebrations in PNC, and we'll go for more questions. So celebrations of PNC is balanced engagement of vitality. As we understood, the culprits in PNC is over engagements of vitality. The balanced engagement of vitality is the celebration. Now, balanced engagement of vitality, what it gives us when we obtain a state of balanced engagement of vitality, the body gets the support of extra conserved vitality. Extra conserved vitality, and with that extra conserved vitality, body will try to throw the extra toxin that is accumulated within the body, and then body will raise temperature. The toxins will have higher density than the normal density of the body. Now, to reduce the density of the body, we need heat. And body programmatically increase the heat of the body to reduce the density so that the toxins reduces the density and it gets out of the body in the lesser dense form, in the liquid and the gaseous forms mostly. So that kind of state is called the healing crisis. And the healing crisis is one of the celebrations in PNC. We consider. We may get a lot of discomforts during the process of healing crisis, during the fever primarily. But that comes to us for healing purpose, to get rid of the toxin. Now, healing crisis, if we define, it is a needful initiative of the body to expel the excess toxin by raising the temperature and reducing the density of toxin of the body. Reducing the density of toxin of the body. It comes with clear voice of the organism to rest physically, physiologically, and psychologically. Why clear voice of the organism? Because during fever, we feel tired, physically and psychologically both. We don't feel to physically work. We don't feel to think a lot during the fever time. And physiologically, we lose the taste in the tongue. That's a clear-cut indication by the body. Don't eat. So rest is the recommendation during healing crisis. Physical rest, physiological rest, and psychological rest. That means go to bed and take physical rest. Don't think a lot psychologically. And physiologically, don't introduce anything in the stomach. Because the stomach, the digestive system comes to a halt during the healing crisis. No chemical secretion happens in the digestive tract completely. Most of the cases, individual goes for a constipation. That's also helping to raise the temperature of the body, because the higher pressure, higher the temperature and the heat in the body. So that's a clear-cut indication by the body that rest physiologically also. The moment we introduce something in the digestive system, the focus of the vitality goes from the healing operation to the digestion operation, and that hampers the healing crisis and it gets suppressed. Now, with that understanding, there could be a lot of questions comes that why rest only? Why not to react? Why should we not do something? Let's do something. We have a problem. We are having some discomfort. Now, what is the rationale of not reacting? In the spiritual domain, we often talk about the not reaction. And why not reaction? Because impermanence is a fact of life. In the objective of reaction is to bring change, and change is in the program. That is the spiritual talking that we understand, and we get to hear from a lot of sources that impermanence. In pure nature cure, we propose a materialistic explanation of impermanence. We propose a materialistic explanation of impermanence. That impermanence is not an imagination, not an assumption. It is absolute reality. And what is that impermanence? The physical impermanence is the metabolism, which is happening physically within the body. It's a combination of two sub-processes, anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is building up of the tissue, and catabolism is breaking down of the tissues. And what is that? At the cellular level, anabolism is nothing but the supply of the nutrients. And catabolism is nothing but the expulsion of the toxin to the lymphatic fluid and then further to the blood. That's the process that happens in the body. Anabolism is the supply of the nutrients from the blood through the lymphatic fluid to the cells. And catabolism is the expulsion of the toxin which is there within the cell to the blood via the lymphatic fluid. That's the flow that we see. This is the flow. This is the flow that you see in the metabolism. The upside, you see the white arrows, which is bringing the nutrients to the cell. This is a cell. This is a cell where automatically that nutrients are entering through the osmosis process to the cell. Now, hydrostatically, when there is an excess of toxin within the cell, that gets rejected to the outside of the cell. That is what is the catabolic disposal of the toxin. Catabolic disposal of the toxin. So we need to understand these two aspects, the anabolism and the catabolism, which brings automatically the reduction in the toxin within the body. So the change that we are seeking with the reaction by acting upon the problem that we are facing, that is happening within in any case, then why to react? Right. So what we propose here is the CCCV, consistent, conscious conservation of vitality. And consistent conservation of vitality brings the support to this natural conservation and the healing crisis that we often see. So we talked about the second celebration, which is the conscious reversal. The conscious reversal, even in the acute case. So acute case is the healing crisis is called also acute condition, where the temperature of the body is higher than the normal. Now, in the chronic condition, when we underwent repeated suppression, that time how to reverse the case, how to reverse the case. So that is what is the conscious reversal. And for the conscious reversal, we propose CCCV, consistent, conscious conservation of vitality, where we address three domains primarily. So here we need to understand a toxic body, the toxic blood is actually higher in density than the normal non-toxic blood, right? It's easily understandable. Something is there in the liquid extra that will increase the density for sure. We put salt in a normal clear water, the density of that water will go up. Similarly, the density of toxic blood is higher than the non-toxic blood. So we need to help the body to reduce the toxin. Then there is a connected property of matters with the density, which is speed. And we understand that the speed and the density are inversely proportional. If the density is higher, speed is lower. And we can actually correlate this. When we are in toxic state, when we are sick, that time the overall speed of the body is very less. So we need to understand the difference between the speed in toxic and non-toxic state. And we need to help the body in bettering the speed also, as bettering the density, lowering the density, and hiring the speed. Lowering the density, hiring the speed. And last but not the least, the third factor, connected property of matter, is the heat. When the density is higher, the heat is lower, because the molecules in the matter occupies the heat a lot. So overall heat which is there, that gets reduced. And that also can be correlated when we are ill, chronically ill, our temperature, body temperature goes below 37 degrees centigrade. So we need to work on the preserving the heat also within the body. And the preservation of the heat can happen through the thought management primarily, because thought and heat are quite equivalent and both are forms of energy and non-perceivable. So here the relation between the density, speed and heat, we see density is inversely proportional to the speed and heat. So here what we propose, in management of these chronic cases, we have to understand these three aspects. In the lifespan also, the predominance of density is seen in the first phase of life, then the speed, then the heat. And we can actually translate these into inputs, activities and thoughts. Inputs, activities and thoughts. And these are the 10 factors that we propose to support the natural vitality conservation of the body. The first factor, the first domain is the density. Density helps us to manage the density of the body, this first domain, where primarily we have to manage the inputs. What are the inputs? The primary 4 inputs are there: radiation, air, water, solid food. We'll go deeply on these aspects tomorrow under the tips of PNC, but a little bit of the touching upon on this last slide of the session. The first domain is the density, where inputs are there: radiation, air, water and solid food. The acronym is RAWS. Now the second domain, speed domain, has got 4 further factors, which are spine care, S. The acronym is very interesting: sex, sleep and sex. So first S stands for spine care, then exercise, then sleep, then sexual understanding and execution, both. So that is the second domain. And the last domain is the heat or the thought management. The acronym is RUM, R-U-M. RU stands for rational understanding. The more we rationalize the things, the lesser the burden on the thoughts on the mind. And definitely mindfulness is the last factor, the 10th factor and the very important ultimate factor. So these are the 10 factors to reverse the chronic state of the body. Now I open for the questions to the panel. Whenever it is needed, I'll bring the slides, relevant slides. Yes, Mohini wants to start.
Yeah. So you said that toxic blood is denser than non-toxic blood. How can we be sure of that? You gave the example of if you add salt to water, it becomes denser. But then if you add water to salt, does it not become less dense? So we don't really know which is which, right?
Right. So here we need to understand that what is toxemia. What is toxemia? Toxemia is retaining some garbage in the body. When you retain some garbage in the body, and which is a liquid medium, it is not adding water into the salt, it is adding salt into the water for sure. When we are reducing the toxin expulsion, then there is definitely increase of the density within the liquid. That is what is understood.
Yeah. So now that we know that it is denser, so density is inversely proportionate to heat, right?
Yes.
So we can also say that pressure is inversely proportionate to the temperature.
Pressure is directly proportional to the temperature.
Okay.
Gay-Lussac's law. Let's revise one law called Gay-Lussac's law. that says that the P varies as T. T
This is
varies
Charles law.
No.
Charles.
This is Gay-Lussac, sir.
Charles and Boyle's P proportional to inversely 1 by V and P proportional to T, and
That is
combination P
Charles.
equal to RT, that is Charles and Boyle's.
P and T is the Gay-Lussac law.
Charles. Okay, anyway, it's Charles.
Okay. So PV equals to nRT. It's a combination of three laws, right?
Charles and Boyle's initially.
Charles Boyle's and Gay-Lussac's. These three laws. Anyway, but P directly proportional to the T, right? Sir?
Right.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask.
Yes. Binal.
We talk about physical growth being limited and cognitive growth being limitless. Why do we say cognitive growth is limitless? Why is there, for example, if I'm able to mentally transport myself and map myself with every time, although I'm just putting a hypothetical situation, would that not be a state where I've kind of reached that threshold of cognitive growth?
Yes, excellent observation. So I would like to bring upon your focus on this aspect that cognitive growth, the possibility of cognitive growth is unlimited. When I observe your cognitive growth, then definitely it may look like it's a limited growth. But when you observe from your end that how much I can grow, and there is a possibility to grow to the infinity, I can comment. Seeing your life, I can comment that cognitively growth of BINAL is limited. Are you able to understand? The perception from the individual side and perception from the outside. But perception from the outside, it's definitely,
So even from within, if I were to look from within, why is it limitless? Why can't there be like a destination?
Why, if I counter this, why to have a destination when we have an option to go limitless?
Because you know that then you have arrived.
We have arrived. No, that arrival is an assumption. Again, it's a journey, Binal. Arrival to some point in cognitive level is an assumption. It's a journey. There is no end to it. There's no destination at all. When we assume the destination, it is just suffering from the assumption.
So I want to add here also.
Yeah.
Yes, Meenu.
Right?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, isn't it limitless because the others are also going on changing, dynamic? Everything that you can transport to is dynamic.
Yeah. So why this is called limitless dynamism is definitely one aspect. But what BINAL is targeting is the destination in this cognitive growth. Whether we can find a destination in this or not, the answer is the expectation of the destination is itself is an assumption. We cannot expect that those all stories of enlightenment. These are actually just assumption that we suffer. Glorification of the enlightenment, actually. One sudden moment, one person got enlightened. These are just assumptions. How can we claim that? Because enlightenment cannot be a point. It is a journey. It's a journey. Enlightenment has got a lot of internal work and reaching, then again dropping, then reaching, dropping. It cannot be a kind of station where we have arrived and stayed there. Right? That's what BINAL is targeting to, right, BINAL?
Yeah, and also as to how can we be sure that it is a journey is where I was coming to. Why is it unlimited? The cognitive growth is, I mean, like one point was about dynamism.
Right, yes. Other is the scopes of transportation. Scopes of transportation, external transportation, you cannot count it. It's countless around us, right? So I think Dr. Datta can also throw some light on this, if you can please.
Actually, in your journey, when you arrive some destination, then you find that, okay, this was not my destination actually. So you again start your journey and it goes on like that. So up to infinity, it goes on like that. So it's objectively we can't actually explain that. I think.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Manish is where?
Right, sir.
He has left.
Manish lost the network, maybe.
Oh, I see.
We join again. Today, first time in the series, I found also network issues. So anyway,
I have a question,
sir,
Kalyan.
please. Sir, please.
Binal, is it over with you? Binal?
I'm done. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the earlier one case, I think you were talking about diagram, reason zone and non-reason zone, right? A reason
Yes.
zone of reason and non-reason zone. And
Yes.
the first point is that non-reason.
Non
I think you.
non-concluding.
Yeah, that is
Non-concluded
the
zone.
non-concluded.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
comes as that both the zones are non-concluded zone, right? So these two are connected, of course, isn't it? These two are
Yes. Yes.
connected,
So
but your point
this.
was that that you can conclude actually from that region where the
Yes.
mechanism is not clearly known.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
In that case, you cannot conclude,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. So this
So
reason zone
yeah,
is actually evolving. It will be evolving like this. It will be evolving like this. So when the
yeah.
non-concluded zone is concluded and valid reason is found out, it actually comes to the reason zone.
But that how one can find the conclusive part from the non-conclusive one gradually with time, unless he or she explores in that non bigger zone, that means
That is what is
non-concluded
the
zone.
rational analysis. That is what is
That
the
is what
dialectical.
yeah.
That is what is
Uh,
the dialectic
yeah,
exploration
that
of
is
life.
one famous theorem is actually mathematical theorem is very celebrated, Gödel's incompleteness theorem. It states
Mhm.
that a set, all the assumption or called axioms, all the axioms of that particular set are not sufficient to prove all the axioms. That means you have to
Mhm.
take something from outside the set to explain the axioms of the given set. So that means probably
Mhm.
it's connecting that you have to
Yes,
take
yes,
the experiential wisdom, as Manish was talking about that day, the term
yes,
from
yes,
non-concluded zone, and then only you can improve your region zone, right?
yes,
So they are connected. So that's a comment only, not a question really.
yes.
Uh, and another comment that today you have in a very short time you have every other panelist maybe they are aware of, but so many concept terms you have introduced jhat. So it was a bit difficult for me unless I go further, study
Yes, yes,
further.
yes,
Particularly the celebration point healing crisis. That is
yes,
a needful initiative, right? And take
yes.
rest and rest physiologically, psychologically,
Physically,
and
PPP.
physically. Yeah, and then you brought the term impermanence, and then
Yes.
you mentioned that the spiritual aspect of that impermanence, and then you went for that it has a materialistic part, and then that materialistic part you elaborated in terms of metabolism and analysis. So
Mhm.
when you were talking about this last portion, then I was thinking actually that two-step back process. So that was quite fast for me. Of course, they are connected. Maybe I will understand. And then density, that last table you have shown, density, heat, and speed. That is
Yes.
also all are scientific terms. So I was naturally interested to know details, but it was too fast.
Yes.
Particularly the inputs,
Yes.
domain, and
Inputs, activities.
other things. So that is my comment only that I have to
It's a
understand.
really condensed actually today's topic. Perhaps all the day's
Okay.
topics for a person
Yeah,
who is new to this understanding. So
and
tomorrow, what we'll do, we'll spend more time on Q&A discussion.
okay.
Primarily, so let's. Yes, sir.
One last thing
Sir.
can I add? Manish was it had been better if Manish would be there. Anyway, I just am talking to you and other panelists
Yeah,
that
yeah. He can watch
regarding
the recording.
regarding an old issue, and which Manish had a strong reservation or objection, that replacement, conservation and versus preservation. And then you
Yes.
sent some write up, and I have gone through all those things. And then let me make my final comments on that.
Sir.
Well, uh, as you mentioned rightly, that preservation and conservation can be interchangeably used, and that they are using actually. That is particularly in the natural science domain, that natural organization, they usually prefer the conservation term. And what is what some Wikipedia, Oxford Dictionary, etc., that are also mentioned. My point is, it is a matter of human intervention. When human intervention is there, then the question arises whether you should prefer which term, preservation or conservation. So there may be some two specific essential meaning attributed to these terms. But as far as mathematics is concerned, mathematical truth, beauty or truth, or scientific truth, then I consider that when first law you are referring that total energy is constant and they call it conserved, that means they are emphasizing more on constancy, that it is constant, right? It doesn't matter whether you are using conserved or preserved the term. The constant, that is mathematical concept, that is actually important, right? So when a sentence you are referring like the need of conservation of vitality, the need of conservation of vitality dot dot dot, in this sentence my question is conservation of what? Vitality. No, what vitality? If it is the total vitality, then conservation term is irrelevant. It is actually conserved. So whenever we are talking about conservation, you must mention that it is the engaged vitality or disengaged vitality. It's not the total one. Total one is automatically conserved. Now, if you just focus on the part of the scale, that green, gray, and that yellow color, the scale, then if you mention the parts, then really doesn't matter which term you're using. But as per your the way you are using the term, I think conservation is even better term than preservation. But keeping in mind that I am referring only the part of the vitalities. My original confusion is with that concept, that whether it is with the total one or parts one. If the total one, then it's not needed at all. It is conserved. So, but throughout, actually, you are referring the either the green zone. In fact, the green zone, that is you are most focusing, that it has to be conserved, or you can say it has to be preserved. But in the in true sense, it better to say that it has to be conserved, right?
Yes.
So not to get confused, but I am at par with Manish that yes, it should be conserved.
Yes, yes, yes. We also thought in the same line, we had a discussion also offline, that when we talk about the human intervention, when we talk about the human intervention, then mostly we use the term preservation. But this human intervention in pure nature cure, we propose to withdraw the intervention, not to probe it. So if we are not probing it, then it is not a preservation, it is conservation, because we are supporting the natural conservation by withdrawing our interventions. Right? So this is a reverse of the intervention, perhaps. That's why I appreciate your comment and explanation that we should go ahead with the conservation to be in line with the science.
Only focusing,
Right.
keeping in mind that constance is related to the first law of thermodynamics.
Yes. Mohini raised hand. Yes, Mohini.
So I have a question, like when you were doing the recap, should I ask it
Yes.
now or should I ask it offline?
You can please.
So you had told us, like, suppose I am feeling pain, and you said in a like comparing to 1 to 10, if the pain is 7, so you can exaggerate it to 40, or in the state of fragility, it can be 3 or 4. So I'm saying, when you say the reality is 7, is reality not what we perceive it to be? Did your phone die?
I couldn't comprehend. Your question I couldn't comprehend. What is the question? Mohini, are you there?
No, I think.
I couldn't comprehend. Anyone who comprehended her question? Binal?
No, even I could not get it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So anyway, they might have lost the network. The video is frozen. So you can take it offline. So thanks a lot, all the panelists. Unless any compelling question is there with you all.
Thank you. Only one thing that you have sent another article to me, thermodynamics and PNC. So not
Right,
today, but I have found a few points, right? Observations. So that are
Maybe
very
tomorrow we
relevant.
can take up. Tomorrow we
Maybe
may
tomorrow,
take up, or
maybe
even after that. Even after that.
sometime later with you only. If
Yes.
it doesn't fit your discussion in a particular session,
Yes.
then we can
Yes.
discuss later
I
on.
do
But some
follow.
serious observations are there for clarity purpose.
I do
Right.
follow. I look forward. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And a last slide I'll definitely flash for joining our workshops to dive deeper and co-evolve together. And if you value this work, you can contribute also. To have the details, you can WhatsApp on this number to get the links to contribute and join the workshop. Thanks a lot, all the panelists and the viewers.
Thank you.
We'll catch up again tomorrow, 5 p.m. Thank you.